covering the stories that impact your life, your town, your state, and your future. This is the Means Report with your host, Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Means Report. We certainly appreciate you spending part of your day with us, where today we are focused on two topics that I think will be of great interest to many of you. First of all, pancreatic cancer. There's a program at the Georgia Cancer Center at MCG at AU that can set you up potentially for a pancreatic cancer screening. We'll tell you about that, and we'll also take a look at the disease in general and things that we can do to try to catch it early and to live the healthiest life possible. Also, how about free legal advice today and legal insight into that world? An attorney will be on the set of the Means Report to talk about that, to kind of pull back the curtain, let us know what goes on behind the scenes, what the hot legal topics are, everything from the right amount of automobile insurance to have when you're on the road to the advent of artificial intelligence. Can we be our own attorneys now? Just tell Google to type up our case and handle it? We'll find out from a lawyer in just a few minutes. And of course, we'll wrap up the broadcast with ways that you can stay in touch. It is easy to do that. We will show you at the end of this broadcast. But first, let's welcome Dr. John Henson, he of the Georgia Cancer Center at MCG at AU, where he is the director of the Hereditary Cancer Clinic. A busy man for sure, Dr. Henson. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Honor to be here, Brad. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to point out this program to our viewers, let them know about it, how they could maybe get screened for pancreatic cancer. But let's just first do sort of some general questions about the pancreas itself. When I think of it, I think of an organ that releases insulin and that helps our bodies digest things better. Is that accurate?
Those are the two main functions of the pancreas, no doubt about it. The thing that happens, however, is that those glands that actually secrete the enzymes and sometimes the insulin, but mainly the enzymes, those glands actually can become malignant. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is this dreaded diagnosis of pancreas cancer, which is a cancer of those glands.
It's one of the really bad cancers, isn't it?
It's one of the worst. And the reasons for that are that it hides deep in the abdomen. And basically, by the time we have a patient develop symptoms from the cancer there, it's typically stage 4, which is the highest stage, typically is incurable. And it's one of the most deadly of all cancers because of that. And it also extracts an enormous toll on the patient as they go through their treatment. It's a difficult situation.
Who gets it more, men or women, or do we know?
It's about equal between men and women, a little bit more in men. This is a very interesting topic, what we call risk factors for any type of cancer like this, and there's two big buckets. So there are risk factors that enormously increase the risk of pancreas cancer, and then those are the ones that create a small increase in risk. So the ones that people often think about, inactivity, overweight, alcohol, those are small increased risk. The really large 50-fold, 60-fold increased risk in pancreas cancer comes from genetic factors that you're born with.
You can't do anything about that.
Well, except to say that you can figure out whether you have them.
Yeah.
And if you do, then let us help you manage your risk.
All right, so you kind of answered my next question, which had to do with risk factors. Can I presume that if my dad or grandfather or grandmother had pancreatic cancer, I too will get it? Or is that just the moment you go in and get your genes checked out to see if you're going to be susceptible?
Very much the latter.
Yeah.
The fact that you have a family member with pancreas cancer probably produces a small detectable risk of the offspring or brother, sister, et cetera, of having pancreas cancer. But what we really do is we use that family history to identify individuals who then need to undergo genetic testing. It's a blood test. We sequence 20 different genes. And if the individual happens to have one of those genes that has a mutation in it, that's someone who needs to undergo pancreas cancer screening. Mm-hmm. And so, as you said, we use the family history to identify the people that need to undergo the genetic testing to, if you will, to increase the value of screening. We can't screen everyone.
And I want to get to the screening program and what all it entails, but let's say you do say yes to a patient, you have that hereditary risk. Are there any pre-treatments or lifestyle changes that could maybe increase the chances of warding it off?
There are. There are things like, for instance, if you smoke, you have a family history of pancreas cancer, one of these genes, you got to stop. You just must do that. It increases the risk. and all those other small risk factors that I was talking about. As we talked, you can't alter the genetic part, but the activity, heavy alcohol consumption, smoking, those are things that you need to get a hold of in your life and fix.
So is it mostly, I'm picturing older people the whole time we're talking to each other being susceptible to this or getting this disease. Is that true, or can people of all ages?
Well, it can happen in all ages. The sort of peak incidence, if you will, happens at about 60 to 65. The thing with the hereditary cases is that they often happen in people who are younger. It's another one of the red flags about a hereditary process. If you see a disease that normally happens at age 65, and now it's in a 45-year-old, watch out, there's a susceptibility of some type in that individual that caused them to get the cancer early. Could be genetic, we look for that.
You mentioned the blood test. Is it as simple as just getting pricked as if you're giving blood? Is it that easy?
It's as simple as that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So not super painful.
No, and if you're really adverse to having a blood test, we can actually do it with a saliva test as well, but we prefer the blood by a little bit.
All right, so last month y'all launched this pancreas cancer screening program. If people are watching right now and they're saying, man, I check a lot of those boxes Dr. Henson has mentioned, I'm gonna race in and get screened.
Yeah.
Is that the way to do it?
It is.
All right.
So the way we have that set up is that if you have a first-degree relative with pancreas cancer, so that would be parent, sibling, child. If you have someone in your family like that, first-degree relative with pancreas cancer, go on our website. We have a web page built for this screening program. And so what you do is you go on there. That leads you to a 5-question survey that identifies whether you need to come in and undergo the genetic testing or not. It's very, very straightforward, very simple. Just go to the Georgia Cancer Center website.
And we're going to put that on the screen.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah,
It's
and the
very
QR
important.
code.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to put that. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt
that's great.
you.
Nope.
But we're going to try to make it easy for the folks. Go ahead.
And then you take that, and then there's an action item screen at the end of each of those sets of questions. It might say, for example, you don't meet the criteria for screening, but thanks for taking and so that's fine. What's more important is when you do meet the criteria for getting the blood test to look whether we need to be screening you or not, then you make a telephone call. You come in and see us, we do the blood test. 3 weeks later, we know whether you're in that higher risk category or not.
So what happens if this program, this attempt at early detection that you all are undertaking works and you catch it early and somebody has, say, stage 1? What happens to that person after that?
Well, that's the key, because in fact, if all we were doing was identifying more stage 4 cancers through this screening process, in some sense, we wouldn't be helping that much.
Right.
What we know from research is that if you go through the screening and you have the MRI scan of the pancreas, basically that's what the screening is. You have the screening test and we find a stage 1 or a stage 2 pancreas cancer. We go in and cut it out, and that either cures you or vastly, vastly increases survival time. It's very powerful.
How quickly can you get back to normal if that surgery, that removal is successful?
Well, it's not a skin biopsy. It's not a trivial surgery. It's open abdomen surgery. So you would be in the hospital for several days after that surgery, just recovering and having nursing needs and whatnot. At 4 weeks, you'd be back to work.
What would you say to somebody, and I think this covers a lot of people that you probably know and that I know, who would just rather not know and carry on with their life and say, look, I don't hurt, I function every day just fine. I don't want to know if my pancreas is getting eaten up by cancer right now.
It's a very understandable response, but as you can imagine from my standpoint, a wrong-headed response.
Sure.
And so the question is how can you talk to people in a way that helps them understand this? One of the reasons that I'm so interested in this whole problem is that, listen to this, 6 of my colleagues have died from pancreas cancer.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
so
only
sorry.
65. I mean, it's time to do something about this problem. So the reason I'm very wound up about this is that I want to stop that from happening to people.
Go ahead.
Well,
yeah.
I'm just saying is that if you want to stay out of that category, and if your risk is really high, you need to come and let us help you evaluate your risk.
First of all, I'm sorry about your coworkers. That's mind-blowing. That many
it's unbelievable.
lost to this disease.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but for the most part, did those colleagues, like I just mentioned with my question, have their heads in the sand and just didn't want to know? What were the circumstances that took all of them?
I don't think there were any situations where they knew that they should have undergone screening and didn't. Mm-hmm. They were all, people like you and me working every day. One day they started getting yellow eyes, or they developed a bad abdominal pain that wouldn't go away. Diagnosis was made, but they weren't, I knew all of them very, very well. They weren't avoiding this. If we had been able to detect it early in them, maybe we'd have been able to save their lives as well.
So what are other warning signs? You mentioned yellow eyes,
yes.
Pain in the abdomen, not just a stomach ache, but something severe.
Persistent, worsening, deep pain in the abdomen. We're not talking about reflux symptoms and whatnot. It's usually a fairly, it's a pain that's hard to ignore. It's usually a pretty significant pain. But see, this is the problem, is that once you have that degree of pain, it's because the nerves are being infiltrated by the tumor, and it's tough. We don't want to wait until people develop abdominal pain to discover this.
Yeah. No, you want to catch it early.
That's
and
right.
Do the treatment that you described. Dr. Henson, I think this screening program is going to be a big success, a life-saving success, and I thank you for doing it and for talking about it today.
Thank you.
It flew by, didn't it?
Are we done?
Yeah, that's like a fast 12 minutes. We need to do more to talk about it. It's a great topic, an important topic. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you very much. John Henson, Georgia Cancer Center, MCG at AU, director of the Hereditary Cancer Clinic, our special guest today. When we come back, we have a lawyer on the set of the Means Report to tell you what is happening in the world of law. You can't drive 2 inches in this town without seeing billboards, or turn on your TV without seeing all those commercials. Why? He'll tell us when we come back.